Twice is about a mother who has been through some rough stuff. She's an artist who has gone through a hard time when she was younger. She decided to give her child up to the system because she couldn't look after her anymore, and has since reformed her ways, and we pick up the story just as she gets her back.
It's a classic genre horror film, sort of based on the Knockdown Ginger game.
So the game is that when you come and knock on the house, and if you knock twice, that the witch who used to live in the house and killed herself will come knocking for you on any door around.
Well, the genesis of the project was I went to a screening of The Machine in Times Square after it premiered in Tribeca, and there was sort of a paying audience, and by that point I'd seen the film 500 times, and so I was watching the audience rather than watching the movie. And the bits that I enjoyed the most were the bits where, you know, the couples were hugging each other, or, you know, people were tense on the edge of their seat. And so I thought, well, wouldn't that be a fun thing to make a whole movie like that? So I spoke to John, and he started looking for horror scripts, and he eventually found one which was absolutely brilliant. And then I started working with Mark and Nick to refine it and to kind of shape it into something that we could make.
One night I was by myself, I was working, and there was a knock at the door. So I went and answered the door, and there was no one there. And I didn't think much of it, and then the next week it happened again, and it happened again, and it kept happening, and I realised that this, of course, was
haunting.
was kids knocking and running away, and we started talking about that game that everyone's played when they were kids, and it's called, in this country, it's called Knock and Run or Knockdown Ginger.
So the game of knocking on doors and running away before the person gets to the front door is quite widely known around the world.
And we thought this is one of those universal things that would be quite a good starting point for a scary story.
I love horror films, and supernatural horror in particular, and I thought what Nick and Mark were doing was really interesting in their use of the urban myth and haunted houses, and I thought we hadn't seen something like that in the UK for a long time, and I felt like we could really draw upon the UK's extremely rich tradition of horror as well, and in particular the Gothic.
One of the key things about making horror films frightening is getting believable characters that you care about at the centre of the story. I found this story about the sculptress who gave her kids away and then regretted it, and of course she totally destroyed her relationship with them, and she died in a fire. And I always thought that was very interesting, how she'd given up her family for her art, and then somehow her art was destroyed by that kind of selfishness.
It's all about, I think, redemption, but also how far you're willing to go to protect your child and get your child back, and you may just have to go to hell.
And I knew that by creating a character that was layered and interesting and had all these different facets to her personality, we had a chance of getting a great actress.
Katee's work we were very familiar with from, you know, great roles like Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica, or in 24 she was really memorable, and there was just something that kind of she really brought to the part. I think she really connected with the character. She seemed genuinely excited about the role.
She often plays very strong characters and very kind of tough characters, and characters who are in control. And I thought, well, I felt there was a kind of a vulnerability there underneath the surface that hadn't been tapped into, and I was very curious to see if she'd respond to that in the script. And of course she did, and I just couldn't have been more thrilled with the performance that she gave. So once we were lucky enough to secure Katee, obviously the next thing to do was to find who was going to play her daughter. It's a deceptively difficult role because you're looking for someone that's going to be vulnerable and convincing, and obviously a good actress and all of those things, but you're also looking for someone that's got a real inner strength and a toughness and an intelligence, and that's what we found with Lucy.
Hi, Chloe.
The movie for Chloe is kind of a juggling act between punishing her mother in a way for abandoning her when she was younger, and also really needing her mother because she is just a child and bloody terrified, trying to escape this witch.
There's a policeman who doesn't believe that the kids that are going missing because of this supernatural entity. He obviously thinks it's something a bit more, well, more sinister than that, really. He says, you know, good old-fashioned murdering pedos.
I think I was working in here on storyboards, and John said, "You've got to see this tape, you've got to see this tape that's come in." And it was Nick Moran, only he looked completely different to what I'd ever seen before. He had this beard, and he was... his whole approach to the character was completely different to what I'd expect Nick to bring to the table.
You know, so it was interesting with the character of Boardman. He's quite a dark and brooding character. You know, he's not the cheeky, chappy Nick Moran who you were used to seeing in that kind of role.
One of the other characters that was very important to cast correctly was that of Tira, the model. I mean, it's a small role, but it's a very important one. And for that, I was looking for someone that could bring a certain amount of mystery and a duality, and Poona is absolutely brilliant.
I played Danny. He's not so much a troubled young man, he's just a bit cheeky, mischievous, and he's got a good relationship with Chloe. They've grown up together. He becomes quite a nasty end.
We met Jordan through Manuel Puro, who'd spotted him in Peaky Blinders. He had a very kind of likeable sensibility to him. Crowd and I just thought he was head and shoulders above the other people who'd read for the part. We really liked him.
I found Caradog an incredibly inspiring director to work with. He is really focused and intense and very precise. And he has a great gift, which is that he's able to really engage deeply with a story.
Craddock's great. He's just got a really good vision.
I knew that he could take the script and the emotional components and really make something special.
I saw what they did with the machine and how they managed to make it really classy and really sort of high-end. If this is of a similar standard, then it's going to be a really tasty film.
It's been really interesting playing Chloe, trying to explore those really highs and lows throughout the film, both emotionally in terms of the relationship between her and her mother.
Lucy's great, and she's incredibly talented, and she's just been a joy to work with. We really get along, and I think that shows on screen. What set this movie apart for me as far as the genre is concerned was that emotional component between Jess and Chloe and the mother and the daughter, and I think that's sort of what all good horror films have is that, you know, make you fall in love with the character and then destroy it.
So you have the freedom with these sort of fantasy films to go wherever you want. It's sort of unbound, and that's I think that's really appealing both to the audience and to the filmmakers.
So this is a ghost story, it's not a monster film, but at the centre of it is this demon, this presence, which is hunting our lead characters. And so I knew that I didn't want that to be CGI.
We were very lucky to find Javier when we first found him because we saw a camera test of another movie. The way that his body moves is very unique. He's got a condition where his ligaments work in a very different way. The way he moves actually looks unnatural.
He's terrifying and he was full of ideas, but more importantly, the demon is there in the room with the actors, and that's always going to be much better, both for the actors and for ultimately the audience.
Yes, if you are working in horror movies, you're proud if you scare the people. I enjoy because since I was a child, I love to scare people.
I mean, I'm not very good with horror films. I'm bloody terrified, and so I thought doing this film would kind of cure that, and seeing all behind the scenes would make it a lot easier. It hasn't. It's also really horrifying, and especially working with Javier when we're all sitting in the green room together. He's so sassy and he's so much fun. And so then it was a real shock when he was in the full mask and wig and everything, and all the body paint, to see him on set. Absolutely terrifying.
Javier's amazing. I mean, there was some days in the cave where he starts to walk after you in character, and it's you can't help but feel like a little creeped out.
On low-budget films like this, where you don't have much time, ultimately there are always things that you can't do in camera, because actually, funnily enough, it's cheaper to do things digitally than it is to, build massive sets or to travel to too many locations.
We got to work with Bait again. They were the team behind the machine, and Christian, their VFX supervisor, is still there and was like running the set for the VFX on Don't Knock Twice.
So today we're shooting here at Ginger's house, and as you can see it's incomplete at the roof line, so one of the things we'll be doing in post is adding a roof whenever we see it. We're going to put a big 6-lane motorway running all the way along there, a little transition out from behind the house. But I think it will really sell the scene, tying it into the urban environment.
The film also presented an opportunity to work with another company called Dream Design, based in India. Interesting process of working with a country that far away from a production company point of view. You have to know that it's going to work like clockwork, and those guys were amazing. They were so professional from the start. You don't technically need a cool title sequence, you know? You can get away without it. You can get away without it, you shouldn't, but you can get away without it. So these guys came in and they were like, we're going to do this, and we're going to hire a door, and we're going to hire these slow motion cameras, and we're going to burn it outside, and we're going to bring this massive crew in. And we were like, that all sounds really cool, but that sounds really, really expensive. And they worked with us on what we were able to spend. They just gave us so much more than we could ever hope for.
It's been a lot of fun. The crew's fantastic. The locations have been interesting, and today is stunning. I've never seen anything quite like this, actually. It sort of looks like a little hobbit village. I think first and foremost what the viewers are going to enjoy is that it's a really well-written horror film with some great scares in it, some interesting ideas, and I think that they're going to identify with the characters and the struggle of both of the characters.
This ticks all the boxes of those genres of films, and hopefully do something a little bit unique that maybe hasn't been, that you're not expecting.
It's got that sort of thriller edge to it where you don't really know what's coming, a lot of jumpy scenes. It looks great, and I think it's going to be a great film overall.
With this movie, I tried to make a horror film that fans would like to see, like myself. I tried to make something that was frightening and full of good performances and with an interesting story that doesn't necessarily go where you think it's going to go. And I really hope people enjoy it.